I have my buddy Dave Hughes with me. He started a website called Retire Fabulously. Of course, it sounds great.
But more about what's your life going to be like after you retire. So the first one I wrote is called Design Your Dream Retirement: How to Envision, Plan for, and Enjoy the Best Retirement Possible. My second book, Smooth the Sailing into Retirement: How to Navigate the Transition from Work to Leisure. Retiring either to other places in the US or to foreign countries. And so I wrote The Quest for Retirement Utopia.
I'm very passionate about retiring early. There is this concept called FIRE. I want to hear from you on what are the things that made you say that, okay, it's enough at Intel, I'm going to retire, and you had an year to think about it.
Yes.
Try to identify the pillars of professionals that are going to help you, be it a real estate broker, a mortgage broker, and a financial planner, somebody who can advise you on your life insurance. I'm super excited because I have my buddy Dave Hughes with me. He started a website called Retire Fabulously. Of course, it sounds great. More than the website, I know him personally. We worked together at Intel. He retired first and then I retired after him. I'm very happy that Dave, you are joining my show. I want to hear everything about all these books too. You wrote 3 books on retirement. Let's talk about the books first.
Okay.
How did you start, the website, the books?
I retired at the end of 2013. And during 2013, Intel, which is where we both worked, offered an early retirement package to people who were eligible. And we had all year to think about it. And it took me up until about July. In July, I finally said, okay, I'm going to do it. But in the meantime, I was looking online for more information about what it's like to be retired. Not so much the financial stuff, because there's a lot of that information online, but more about what's your life going to be like after you retire. And I found relatively little. And so I thought, it might be fun. I have some things I think I can contribute to that conversation. So I started it. My initial posts were really pretty amateurish. They no longer exist on the website. I retired them because they weren't fabulous. And however, I got better. And a couple of years later, I was invited to contribute columns to US News and World Report. And so I really started building a large subscriber audience. And I still have about 1,900 subscribers to my website. And so after I was up and running, I thought, well, I'll have a little more authority if I have books out. And it's funny because up to that point, I had never envisioned myself as an author. So the first one I wrote is called Design Your Dream Retirement: How to Envision, Plan for, and Enjoy the Best Retirement Possible. And basically, it encourages people to start to envision their retirement in a very positive light and to think in more concrete terms about what they want to do for the rest of their life, because that can be 20 or 30 years if you're healthy. So this book came first. It was actually very well received. My second book, Smooth the Sailing into Retirement: How to Navigate the Transition from Work to Leisure. One thing I discovered is many people think that when you retire, all that means is you can leave the alarm off on Monday morning and sleep in as late as you want. That's not really true. In fact, this is the period of time when you experience the most change in your life all at once. If you're now home with your spouse, you're now with your spouse 24 hours a day. It changes your relationship with money. It changes your relationship with time. You don't see as many people unless you make the effort to do it. There are all kinds of changes, and a lot of them people are not prepared for. So this book is for that. So this is sort of focused on the half year before you retire into like maybe a year or so after you retire. Then some of the articles that I wrote on the website had to do with retiring either to other places in the US or to foreign countries. And so I wrote The Quest for retirement utopia. And this is how to find the retirement spot that's right for you. And, you know, it's the internet is full of top 10 lists. Top 10 cheapest cities to retire, top 10 best cities for golfers, you know, top 10 for everything. And they're fun to look at, but they're really kind of worthless, in my opinion, because retirement utopia is going to be different for every one of us, depending on what our activities are, what amenities we desire, what climate we desire. So this isn't so much about recommending specific places to retire. It's how to help you clarify and identify what's important to you and therefore where you should live. So those are my 3 books.
I love it. I bought your first book, Design Your Dream Retirement. I've read it and it was great. As you know, I'm very passionate about retiring early. There is this concept called FIRE, right? Financial independence and retire early.
Yes.
So that is something that that was the first trigger point for me to get into passive income, getting into real estate and make sure that the finances are set. And that's why even my YouTube website, it says why seeker in the sense I'm trying to seek wealth, health and myself, and I'm seeking for it. And all that is possible when you actually have this mind frame of retirement. So retirement, like Dave said, if you want to retire fabulously, it doesn't mean that you're going to just sit at home and do nothing. That is highly overrated, actually.
Yeah, and that sounds like a very unfabulous retirement to me.
Exactly. And I had to personally experience it because I just thought that doing nothing is great. Last year, when me and my wife, when we achieved the passive income goals that we had to support our lifestyle, we both decided to retire. And then what happened after retirement is I started going insane, borderline insane, because there was no goal in the day. The day was just drifting, like you said, sailing in the retirement, right? I would say drift. Your life would be drifting, not just the time, but your brain will be drifting, and it's a terrible place to be. And that's why we chose to come back from retirement and then again serve the customers that we enjoyed doing all along. So first is you have to take a couple of steps back and see what you want to do. And according to me, Dave, like finances, I feel are something that bothers people to retire, right?
Right.
So I always talk about making sure that you have a goal of passive income wherein you stop working and that's the number you want to hit, and you want to hit the sooner the better, because let's say you hit the goal when you're 45, that means you can retire in the sense that you can start doing what you enjoy to do. If you enjoy working, then it's fine.
That's fine. Yes.
Then that's fine. So that's how I saw it. I want to hear from you on what are the things that made you say that, okay, it's enough at Intel and we're going to retire, and you had an year to think about it.
Yes. So it had always been my goal to retire early. Now, at that point, I wasn't thinking of early as meaning like 40 or something like that, but at least maybe 50 or 55. And so throughout my working career, you know, I saved pretty aggressively. So I had planned to retire a little bit early for most of my career, like maybe 50 or 55.
You always had that mindset.
I always had that mindset.
I'm going to retire early.
Yes.
Not sure at what age, but I'm going to retire early.
Right.
That's a good mindset to begin with.
It is.
Yes.
And then, I mean, my very first job out of college, I started contributing the max to my 401k. Every chance I could, I'd increase my contribution. So, you know, I was a pretty voracious saver and very careful about spending. Because I had this goal, I want to quit working as soon as I can. And I had a very good career. I mean, I enjoyed my career, many aspects of it. So I'm not here to say I hated working.
That's what I was going to say, actually, because I remember working with you and you're passionate about work stream, and people used to come to your cubicle to ask any question. You're an expert at what you're doing, and I always thought you enjoyed it. When you announced your retirement, I was like, why is he retiring? I thought he enjoyed it, and he was pretty accomplished in the career. So I like where you are going with this, wherein you chose to retire not because you didn't enjoy your work. You chose to retire because you want to pursue other things.
Right. And there was one other factor too. During the last 10 years of my career, I was actually a manager. So I had about 8 or 10 people reporting to me, and I really enjoyed that. And being a manager had been one of my goals for my career. I was starting to look ahead, thinking, maybe 3 or 4 more years. And I applied for a few opportunities elsewhere in the company. None of them came through. And I kind of thought, all right, I can do the same old thing I've been doing for 10 years for another 3 or 4 years, or I can pull the plug. And I decided, I weighed how much money am I foregoing with that last, it turned out 3.5 years of salary versus what's the value of my time?
Yeah.
How much do I value my freedom? And I ran the numbers. I thought, I have enough money. Bye-bye.
See,
So
you just mention it casually. Okay, I have enough. Bye-bye, right?
mhm,
It takes so much of courage to come up with your number.
mhm,
Coming up with your number, not just a financial goal that you want, but even a personal goal, because there is no end to it. You are grade 5 to grade 7, grade 10. You keep on going. There is no limit. And employers always keep adding more carrot to it.
mhm,
And I mean, you always want to have a bigger nest egg because you don't know how long you're going to live. But it's so important to have your goal and say, once you hit your goal, then what? You need to recalibrate. For us, the biggest challenge that we had was we hit our goal, but we were so busy with the business. We had so much of business coming and falling in our lap. And it was so difficult for us to walk away from it, saying that, you know what, we are retired, we are not going to do it.
mhm.
But then what happened later in our life is different because we were enjoying it. We thought we might as well do it. So again, we resumed all our real estate business, the mortgage business, and all that. So how did you come up with your number saying, okay, this is how much I need? Was it inflation adjusted? And did the inflation catch you by surprise? Because it's been how many years since you retired?
Almost 9. Well, okay, 8.5.
8.5.
Yeah.
So inflation numbers have changed dramatically. It used to be 3-4%. Now it's like over 10%.
Mhm.
So how is your financial goal tagging along? Is it shocking, or you're okay to accommodate that?
No, I'm fine. I've never been really worried about ups and downs in the stock market or the economy in general, because when you take a long-term view, you realize everything is cyclical. Yes, there are going to be market crashes and bear markets for a while, but they always turn around and recover.
Yeah.
And every time you read a headline that says, the Dow Jones Industrial Average hits a new all-time high, that means it's recovered from all past recessions and it's going into future territory. And so I really don't sweat that. A lot of people panic when they look at their IRA balance or their 401k balance. Oh my God, I lost 50%. It'll come back. So, I've never been really worried about market swings. In the long term, I'll be fine.
I think one of the traits that you have and I have that is a common theme is markets are cyclical. Never
Mhm.
panic, try to rebalance it like crazy.
Mhm.
You just rebalance at your own predetermined timeline. And even for me, I don't panic. Like when
Mhm.
we have a lot of real estate holdings and I hear the news about market doing this, doing that, I'm not going to panic and pull the plug on anything. But the number that I always am harping on is the cash flow for the market. Cash flow,
Mhm.
like how much is the amount of money that I'm spending, all my expenses, to all the passive income that I have. Even if I have $1 above that,
Mhm.
I'm fine.
Mhm.
Is the mindset that I go in with. Of course, there is emergency funds. There is a bracket for that. Definitely, cash flow is where I saw, and I said, and I, as soon as I realized, okay, this is my total income that I'm going to gain from all my investments,
Mhm.
and this is my total expenses, and as long as it is $1 more, I'm fine.
Right.
And that's how we have decided. And then as you go through it, you'll start feeling more comfortable. You have your expenses on a budget, and everything seems to work out fine for me.
Mhm. Yeah. And, here's something that you touched on a minute ago, and that is, having a number in mind for which, once you reach that number, do you have enough money that you can retire? And of course, a lot of people are probably wondering, well, what's that number? Tell us, please. And you see all kinds of formulas. You see anything from 11 times your salary when you retire. You see you can withdraw 4% of your income every year, and can you live on that 4%? And there's other formulas that you can read, and they all have some value, but I think a little bit differently about that. How much money you're going to need is totally up to you, and it's up to what you plan to do with your retirement.
That's great.
And that's why, really clarifying your goals ahead of time is important, because if you know, for example, a couple who are very good friends of mine, principal engineers at Intel, so they're both in pretty high job grades, they have PhDs, and they are living well below their means and investing a lot because they know when they retire they want to move to San Francisco.
Oh, wow.
San Francisco is an extremely expensive place to live, but they know that. They've comprehended it. They've worked that into what they want to do. If you and your wife want to take luxury cruises around the world, you can figure out what those cost, and you need to factor that in there. But on the other hand, if you want to move to some place where it's extremely inexpensive to live and live frugally, so you don't need to have that much, that's up to you as well. So that's why I think it's really important to clarify what you want your retirement to be like, because that way you can set the number that's right for you.
This number actually puzzles and confuses people.
Mm-hmm.
And how you clarified is excellent.
Mm-hmm.
The first thing is you need to have clarity on what you plan to do in the retirement.
Mm-hmm.
That is the first question before you trying to ask yourself how much I need. What do you plan to do in the retirement? Do you plan to live here 60% of the time and 40% you are going to travel? Then your
Mm-hmm.
budget is totally different. Versus you plan to just stay put and use YouTube Premiere to watch everything on YouTube and not travel too much, then your number will be totally different.
Right.
So how do people come up with that number? I wish there was like a workshop or something wherein we can say people, okay, if you want to do this, if you want to travel, then
Mm-hmm.
this is what it is. I remember seeing people offering some workshop. Do you do any workshops around this, Dave?
Well, I do, but one thing that I want to make clear is, I am not a trained or licensed financial advisor. Now, over the years, I have learned as much as I can about how investing works and all that, but I am not actually qualified to give advice in those terms. That's why I always sort of stress that my focus is retirement lifestyle, everything that doesn't directly have to do with finances. Although, as we were just saying, finances still plays a big role in that. So I'm a little hesitant to give specific information as to how people ought to come up with their number. One of the smartest things I did, probably at least about 20 years ago now, is I engaged with a financial advisor. Up to that point, I had been, reading magazines and spreading my money amongst the funds that Intel or whoever my employer was offered. But I went to her, and she introduced some entirely different strategies, and it paid off in spades. So, unless you are really, really knowledgeable, I really recommend hiring an outside financial advisor, because they will see options that you don't see.
Exactly. And before the podcast, we were briefly discussing about planning finances and all that. I can bet you that your insights that you learned working with a financial planner are very valuable.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, in some cases, I would go ahead and say that, okay, Dave is probably a better financial planner than many out there, because you've actually done it for yourself and you're closely monitoring your financial situation,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then it's very important to talk to professionals, right? Professionals in the sense that you have to see. For our YouTube channel, we talked about wealth and health and you and how to improve yourself. For the wealth aspect, right? You can have passive income with multiple vehicles, right? You can invest in real estate and get some passive income, or you can invest in stocks and bonds and get some income from there, or you can invest in life insurance and get it. So all that, you need to have professionals who can work with you and build the
Mm-hmm.
foundation. Without the foundation, you're just talking something, it's up in the air and you don't know.
Right.
So my urge for the people who are listening about this retiring fabulously concept, right? First is, I would say, try to identify the pillars of professionals that are going to help you, be it a real estate broker, a mortgage broker, and a financial planner, somebody who can advise you on your life insurance, so that you can at least have a plan, because each professional has a different insight. A real estate broker might say, oh, you have to invest everything in real estate because I'm a real estate broker. That's how I see it.
Mhm.
So my advice could be totally flawed if you are unable to diversify and have a financial planner. Versus a financial planner might not even count real estate investments into the mix.
Right.
And then a lot of times the financial planners, you have to tell them clearly when you plan to retire. I think that makes everything easy, doesn't it?
Right. And if they're good financial advisors, they'll ask you questions like, how risk averse are you, or how willing are you to take risks? And other questions about what you plan to do after you retire. A saying I really like is, retirement is more than a math problem.
More than a math problem.
Yes.
Math problem is not as easy to begin with.
Mm-hmm.
I also remember when we used to work at Intel, they just introduced this concept of this 2045, 2035. I don't know if you remember. Fidelity came up with this number saying if you want to retire in the year 2045,
Mm-hmm.
you just pick the 2045 as your plan name, and then all your assets are rebalanced based on that. And by default it says, okay, if it's 2045, you have a lot of time to retire, and then they put you in high risk kind of investment vehicle. So
Mm-hmm.
that started. So all these financial planners also have out of the box options,
Mm-hmm.
and it's up to you to actually research and see, okay, does it make sense? You can pick that 2045 for example, and say, you know what, I'm not as interested in playing it too risky, and then you can tweak it, or have 20% of your assets in the 2045 plan, and then 80% you have it in the 2035 plan.
Mm-hmm.
So there is a lot of tools like that.
Right. And personally, for me, I found those year-based plans to be a little bit conservative. I'm a little more willing to take risks, but I check them out. And for many people, especially people that don't want to get too involved in learning about investing, that's a really good option. And what they do is they shift the mix between stocks and bonds gradually as you get closer to retirement, or investments that are more volatile or more likely to swing with investments that are going to be more stable.
Yes. So Dave, I want to wrap up this first episode, and then I want to hear your closing thoughts on people who are actively thinking about retirement in the next 15 years. What are the things that they really have to pay attention to right now?
Okay. And really, the thing is to define what you want to do as much as possible. If you go to my website, retirefabulously.com, there's a tab that says free stuff. And if you go to that tab, you can download a worksheet. It's several pages long, and it asks a number of prompting questions. Do you plan to do this? Do you plan to do that? And various things to think about. And I would recommend that you download that. Like I say, it's free. And those questions also track pretty well to topics that I cover in this book. So that's kind of like a companion workbook, but I'm giving it away free. And the other thing I'll say about that is, if you are married or partnered, have your spouse do it too. So many couples think that what they want for retirement is also what their partner wants, and you might be surprised just how different it is. And so that's a good opportunity for you and your spouse to have that conversation to get your retirement goals in line in terms of what you want to do.
That's a terrific start, Dave. Dave, thanks so much. We are going to catch you on the next episode, wherein I want to talk more specifics about when you're almost ready to retire. How do you plan for it? How do you sail through it? And how do you make sure that it is fabulous? So
Okay.
just hang on tight. We are going to talk on that.